Boldwood presents Chasing a Highland Dream, written by Lisa Hobman and read by Ailey Beaton. The moral right of the author has been asserted. This performance is owned by Boldwood. Prologue. Late March. Bella Douglas sat at the antique desk in the grand library of Drumblair Castle, the room that had become the office and hub of the future plans for the place. As she glanced around at the vast space, with its floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and rich-coloured leather-bound tomes, she smiled. It had always held a special place in her heart. These days the castle belonged to her best friend, Olivia MacBain, whom Bella and their other best friend, Skye, had met at high school when Olivia won the argument to attend a normal local school instead of being sent away. On the sudden passing of her mother, and in a rather unexpected turn of events, Olivia had inherited Drumblair Castle instead of her older brother Kerr, who was known for his gambling addiction. Their mother had evidently decided that he would be incapable of protecting the family's legacy, so that task had now fallen on Olivia's shoulders. Of course, Kerr hadn't taken the news well and had threatened to contest the will. Thankfully, Olivia's Uncle Innes had stepped in and made sure Kerr realised this would be a waste of time. As teenagers, Bella and Skye had been regular visitors to Drumblair Castle near Inverness, and Bella's passion for interior design had started in this very library. From the imported mahogany and the Adam-style plaster mouldings and cornice to the grand carved plant stands and Henry Raeburn ancestral portraits, it was a stunning update that had taken place in the 18th century when the laird of the time and his lady had decided to modernise. It had created an intrigue in all things Georgian for Bella. Bella had fantasised about living at Drumblair, and her first teenage crush had meant she had dreamed of one day marrying Kerr MacBain and living happily ever after within the ancient walls. But of course, things rarely work out how you hope. These days, Skye was engaged to her childhood sweetheart Ben and worked at a city centre bank, and Bella was PA to her best friend, the newly appointed Lady MacBain. And whilst it wasn't the career in interior design she had dreamed of, it was much better than some of the mundane roles she'd endured since taking the difficult decision to drop out. At least her role here was fun and varied. Following Olivia's unexpected inheritance, her plans to open the castle to the public had been on schedule, until a series of disasters had befallen the place over the winter, a stark reminder that the 15th century castle was in a poor state of repair. Then, recently, a severe storm had damaged the roof further and taken down the scaffolding on the exterior, meaning more repairs were needed. It was late March now, and the original opening date had passed. Due to delays in funding, it had now been put back to July. The door to the library burst open. Well, that's it. It's officially all ruined, Olivia said with a deep sigh as she slumped down onto the chair opposite Bella, her shoulders hunched. After such a positive start to the renovations and plans, so much had gone wrong for poor Olivia. But at least she had the support of Bella and Skye, her mum's stepbrother Uncle Innes, and of course her almost fiancé Brodie. Bella's heart sank for her friend. Oh no, what is it now, Liv? The interior design company for the stable block apartments has given backward just as they were about to start work. The contact I spoke to was very apologetic but vague. What the hell am I going to do now? It was evident from Olivia's trembling chin she was on the verge of tears and of giving up. I'll do it, Bella blurted without really thinking. Olivia lifted her chin, and with watery eyes she frowned. But Bella stood and walked around the old desk to perch on it before Olivia. I know I'm not qualified, and I know this is a bit crazy, but you know how much I love that kind of thing. You saw what I did with my little flat. You've seen what I've done at my mum and dad's house, too. Olivia shook her head. I know, Bella, but this is a massive undertaking. They've withdrawn all their plans, so you'd be starting from scratch without a scheme. It's a crazy amount of work for you to take on, and I really don't want to put that much pressure on you, especially seeing as you're employed as my PA, not my designer. Bella's heart skipped with giddy excitement. I know I could do it though, Liv, and I'd absolutely love the process, I'm sure. Olivia fell silent, and Bella realised she had put pressure on her friend to accept a ridiculously left-field idea. Sorry, I've just replayed what I said in my head, and I can see how mad it sounds. This is a business, and of course you want it doing professionally. I have 0 qualifications and no real portfolio to speak of. She waved her hands as if doing so would erase the previous few moments. Forget it. Rewind. She stood and did a comic backwards walk while pretending to speak in reverse. Doing so caused her stomach to knot with embarrassment, and she cleared her throat excessively before saying, Sorry, that was weird. Do you want me to start a search to look for another designer? Olivia chewed on her lip and stared silently at the wall for what felt like ages until she stood up abruptly. Okay, put together a mood board. How you see the apartments looking. Forget what the other company came up with. Show me your vision. If I like it, I'll give you a go. But if I don't, I'll have to be completely honest with you. Although, please know it won't mean I love you any less. I just have to get this right because the funding allocation was quite strict about the apartments being sustainable. Olivia bit her lip again and cringed. It's terrifying, though, because you're my best friend and I don't want to hurt your feelings, but I might have to. Bella sensed she was already talking herself out of it. She needed to intervene. Bella twisted her fingers in front of her and mirrored Olivia's lip-chewing. You may think this is absolutely nuts and totally bizarre, but I already have a mood board prepared. Olivia narrowed her eyes. Sorry, what? Bella felt her cheeks warming almost to the point of spontaneous combustion, and she sighed deeply. When I realised you were turning the stables into apartments, I had all these ideas. They just kept springing into my mind, so I created a series of Pinterest boards. Olivia gave a light, incredulous laugh. You've never mentioned this before. No, because you'd got everything sorted, and I only did them for me. I had absolutely no intention of anyone ever seeing them. Are they on your laptop? Olivia asked, wide-eyed, pointing to the desk. Bella paused, and then with hesitance said, They are? Olivia held her hands out. Well, come on. Olivia had put on hold her own career as a fashion designer in New York for the house of Nina Piccaro, designer to the stars, when she had inherited the castle, and hoped the apartments could be rented out to artists and creators, like herself, as an inspirational retreat. Plus, they would create another income stream to add to the many Olivia had planned for the upkeep of her ancestral home, so they had to be done right. After a few minutes of scrolling through Bella's designs, Olivia turned her attention back to Bella. Seriously, Bells? Why didn't you show me these? They're far better than the ones from the company I'd hired. Bella's heart skipped again as the possibility of living her actual dream was almost a tangible thing. I'm so glad you like them. I tried to keep the castle in the forefront of the design without being twee and Disney-ish. After all, it's not a theme park, so it's important the apartments stay true to their origins in some way. That's why the stonework is left exposed in some rooms, and why I haven't blocked up all the alcoves. I also thought it would be great to use some of the old furniture pieces from the attic. I remember there being all sorts of wonderful things up there when we used to go sneaking around. Olivia's eyes lit up. You see, the designers we had were keen to completely modernise the interior of the stables and create a total contrast to the rest of the castle. I went along with it because they had great reviews. But what you've done is mix the old with the new, and I love that. It's incredible, Bella. I love how you've turned this old tack recess into wine storage. Olivia said, pointing to the screen. Bella shrugged. I figured the stone would keep the wine cool, like in wine cellars. You're hired, Olivia stated matter-of-factly. Bella gasped. Seriously? Are you sure you don't want me to maybe do one room and see what you think? Olivia shook her head. We don't have time for that, and to be honest, I absolutely love everything you've designed, from the rich colours to the lighting. I'd never have thought to use jewel colours on the walls, but I absolutely love the whole look you've compiled. When can you start? You'll need to speak to the builders and decorating team as soon as possible. Oh, in fact, they're finishing off the ceilings today and are due to start plastering the walls tomorrow, so we need to stop that from happening. Bella couldn't hide her excitement and grappled Olivia into a hug. There's no time. Chapter 1. As Bella stood in one of the newly converted stone stables under a freshly plastered ceiling, clutching her iPad and making notes, she couldn't quite believe this was happening. The structural changes to the exterior of the stables had been done already. In addition to the ceilings, first fix electrics had been installed, woodwork had been sanded and stained, and floors had been levelled. They were now at the point where she could instruct the decorators to carry out the designs she never imagined would see the light of day. And even if it was only temporary, she was about to embark upon her absolute dream job, and at Drumblair Castle of all places. She tried to stifle a squeal of excitement bubbling up from within her, but it was suddenly replaced by a squeal of fear when someone slipped their hands over her eyes, making her almost jump out of her skin. It's only me, a male voice said as he snaked his arms around her waist and turned her to face him. Kerr, you scared me half to death, she said with a slap to his chest. Olivia's irreverent brother stuck out his bottom lip and pouted. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Bella sighed but stepped back. Forgiven, I suppose. But what are you doing here? You seem to be here more these days than at your own house in the city. Bella had adored Kerr since she was a teenage girl, and he was her best friend's older brother, all handsome, mysterious, and aloof. She had discovered, however, that in reality he was nothing like she had imagined back then. After a very brief relationship in which she had encountered many red flags, one of which being the fact he was accepting money from a female family friend, 59-year-old Adara Wallace, who was clearly besotted with him, and who she was pretty sure had no clue about their relationship, she had ended things, hating herself for lying to Olivia by omission. Kerr, unfortunately, couldn't seem to let it go. During their short dalliance, Kerr had continuously tried to get her into bed, but Bella had remained true to herself in her determination not to sleep with him until things felt right, a decision she was very happy about now she had ended things. Their relationship had remained a guilt-inducing secret from everyone, except Granny Isla, as Bella figured Olivia had enough going on with her relatively new role as Lady of Drumblair. Things between the siblings had deteriorated further since Kerr discovered, so telling her about them would definitely not have helped. Until quite recently, Kerr had been doing his best to sabotage Olivia's plans for the castle, but with the tiny amount of newfound influence she'd had over him, Bella had managed to convince Kerr he'd been horrible and had helped him to see the error of his ways. He had seemed to make peace with everything and had agreed to do better. So, if anything good was to come out of their clandestine connection, that was it.
I heard you were taking over the design work here, so I wanted to come and say congratulations.
She smiled, surprised he had no other agenda. Thanks. I'm very excited about it. Kerr reached out to her again, but she moved further away, and he sighed deeply.
Won't you give me another chance? I've told you we can tell Olivia very soon, he said. It has to be the right time, that's all.
Bella shook her head and sighed out her exasperation. Not this again, Kerr. I told you I'm not prepared to lie to Olivia again, or to be someone's bit on the side, so drop it, will you? He held his arms out to his sides.
Bit on the side? But there's no one else.
Bella scoffed. Tell that to Adira. He ignored her.
I have to say, you look super sexy in this tight skirt.
Soothing down her clothing, Bella replied, I didn't wear it to appeal to you. Now, I'm busy, so you should go. He stepped closer.
Oh, come on, Bells. You know you still want me. You've fancied me for years. That doesn't change overnight.
She pushed him back firmly and with conviction. It has changed, Kerr. I'm not going through this again with you. You only want me because I turned you down. He stepped back and sulkily stuffed his hands into his trouser pockets.
You'll regret it.
Bella rolled her eyes, wondering why she allowed herself to be sucked in by his handsome exterior. It's a chance I'm willing to take. His expression brightened.
I'll tell Olivia about us. We'll get it all out in the open. That's what you want, isn't it? To make us official. So, let's be official.
He was verging on begging now, and Bella was becoming increasingly frustrated. She gritted her teeth. Not anymore, Kerr. That ship sailed so long ago. We're too different. And I want to be with someone who wants to be seen in public with me, and who doesn't take me out using money he took from another woman. She shuddered at that particular memory. Kerr stepped closer once again and cupped her cheek, running his thumb gently over her skin.
I've told you I'll do whatever you want. Name it. My life's complicated, I get it. And yes, Adira helps me, but it's only financial. She's my friend, that's all.
A friend who makes puppy dog eyes at you constantly, and who moved in with you after your mum died? That's a little more than friendship, Kerr. And if it's one-sided, you're taking advantage of the poor woman. She pushed his hand away and stepped back again, at which point his nostrils flared.
Since Olivia inherited Drumblair, I've been left with nothing. How do you think that makes me feel when it was all rightfully mine? Emasculated, that's how. And now you're doing the same thing.
Bella scoffed and turned her back on him for a moment. I'm sorry, Kerr, but any such feelings are of your own doing, not mine. She turned to face him again and noted his furrowed brow. It wasn't like him to appear so dejected. Adira's in love with you and you're using her. I wonder why my feelings changed. Her words dripped with sarcasm. And you know very well Olivia inherited this place because you would have gambled it away. I'm happy to be friends with you, but that's all I can offer.
I'm stubborn, you know. I'll keep trying. I won't give up. I'll win you back one way or another.
Bella huffed air through puffed cheeks, but tried to remain calm as she shook her head. No, you won't. My mind's been made up for a while now, and I can be stubborn too. She smiled to soften the blow. Kerr's expression filled with sadness.
I don't want to lose you, Bells.
You won't lose me. As a friend. His lips formed a straight line and he nodded.
I should go then. But I'll meet someone eventually, and then you'll definitely regret it when I've got my life back on track.
I'm sure I'll be fine. And I really do hope you meet someone who you love enough to change for. He harumphed.
She's no need to. I'm a grown-arsed adult.
And with that, he walked out of the unfinished apartment, letting the front door close with a bang behind him. Aye, a grown-arsed adult who relies on a sugar mama to pay his way. Bella mumbled into the empty room. May. Bella watched from the kitchen as the painters gathered the last of their equipment. In one hand, she clutched her iPad, showing its long to-do list, and tucked her short blonde hair behind her ear with the other as she smiled at her surroundings. A sense of pride settled over her. This kitchen was the final room to be completed in the last of the 4 apartments. The walls were a fresh cream shade that complemented the deep teal-coloured shaker-style cupboard doors perfectly. The solid wood countertops had been crafted from fallen trees in the grounds of the castle, and Bella was thrilled with the overall look she had created. It was approaching the end of May now, and since being given the chance to create and implement the designs for the old stable block, Bella had grown in confidence thanks to the praise of Olivia and the other staff members at the castle. Each of the 4 apartments had its own colour scheme, and each had its own little quirks that made the most of the beautiful old stonework. The structural additions to each apartment had been turned into features too, with some exposed copper piping and chandeliers hanging from black cables in the centre of the larger rooms. Along with the buzz Bella felt when she viewed the rooms she had created, came a niggling sadness it was coming to an end, and soon the apartments would be rented out to the creative types Olivia had envisaged utilising the spaces. She couldn't help wondering what they would make of it all. She hoped they would love it and be inspired.
Right, well, that's us done,
Davy Howe, one of the painters, informed her as he pulled on his jacket.
Steve's putting the rest of our gear in the van and then we'll be off. You know where to find us for your next reno project.
He held out his hand. Bella shook it and told him, Honestly, the apartments look incredible. I wish I was moving in. Davy beamed at her.
Grand, grand. I hope Lady Olivia is as happy as you are. I wasn't sure about the navy blue walls in the living and dining room in this flat, and the fake panelling in number 3 had me beat too till I saw it all done. I reckon you were right.
See? I knew you'd end up liking it, Davy, Bella said proudly, and with a little flush to her cheeks.
Aye, well, we'll be going the now. Pass on our regards to the lady of the house.
He doffed an invisible cap on his head and left. Once the decorators had gone, Bella focused her attention on her list. She ticked off the apartments and had one last walk around them to assess the work. The old furniture that she had selected from the attics had been repaired and cleaned up and would be arriving imminently, and then, not too long after, the first paying guests would no doubt arrive. Bella stood in the centre of the living room in apartment number 2 and smiled contentedly. The artwork she had purchased would really brighten up the space, and she couldn't wait to get the paintings on the walls. She was excited about the great reveal at the corporate event Olivia was holding for the local business people. The original idea for a Nina Picaro fashion show had been shelved on account of the delays, something Bella knew Olivia was heartbroken about. But then she would go back to being Olivia's PA. Her days would no longer be filled with colour charts, fabric samples, and shopping trips for decorative items. She was going to miss that so much. Being able to use her creative flair made her feel so alive. She noticed things so much more when she was being creative, like the pattern of tree bark, the randomness of cloud formations, the fluidity of birds in a murmuration. She found she became aware of all patterns created by nature, something she always tried to incorporate into her designs, even if they were for her eyes only. Her mum's words rattled around her mind. "Don't you be putting your life on hold for me, Arabella. If I don't make it through this illness, I want to know you're going to be happy and doing something you love." Of course, she had assured her mum at the time she wouldn't ditch her future. But how could she have concentrated on studies when her mum was so ill and in so much pain? Not to mention how her dad and brother had been coping too back then. She dropped out of university to make sure she was at home in case she was needed. These days, and especially recently, her mum and dad and Granny Isla had all been pushing her to return to studying. But she was almost 29. It was far too late. Wasn't it? Chapter 2. Bella arrived home after work and pride. She was happy, and at least Kerr had finally taken her to her word that they were over. He had been cordial for the most part, even though she had caught him gazing longingly in her direction on more than one occasion. She wished she had never entered into anything with him in the first place. She had witnessed him being arrogant, surly, stubborn, and selfish, so why, oh why, had she been attracted to him? She couldn't quite believe she allowed the short affair to go on as long as it had. What had she been thinking? He had been horrible to Olivia after the will reading, and still had a lot of making up to do. "Arabella, is that you, hen?" Granny Isla called from the living room as Bella walked along the hallway into the kitchen at the back of the house. "Aye, Granny," Bella replied. "I'm home, and I have news." She dropped her handbag on the kitchen table, then made her way back through to the living room, and was greeted by Beau, her granny's excitable 2-year-old beagle. As Bella scratched the dog behind his ears, she glanced up at her granny, who was sitting in front of the TV in her purple paisley caftan, watching a quiz show. "Have you had a good day?" Her long violet hair was tied in a neat chignon, and she had on a full face of makeup. She really was the epitome of the glamorous granny in a cool, eccentric kind of way. Isla rolled her eyes. "If you mean have I enjoyed spending my day with a load of gyratics moaning about their ailments and trying to one-up each other on how many pills they take every day, then yes, it's been thrilling." She pursed her lips. Bella couldn't help smirking at her granny's incorrect use of geriatrics. "Granny, you're older than most of the people at the day centre, you know." Isla waved a dismissive hand. "Aye, well, you're only as old as you behave, so I'm practically a 20-something compared to that lot of whinge bags. Don't get me wrong, they're not all like that, mainly the curly perm brigade." She scoffed. "You won't catch me wearing a twin set and pearls and carrying 5 packets of Werther's Originals in a pot of smelling salts in my handbag. No thanks. And I don't understand the need to compete for whose aches and pains are the worst either. We're British. We should suffer in silence. Bella asked as she flopped onto the sofa. Isla huffed. I go to keep them company, to try and show them there's a different way of life than greeting on all the while. But anyway, there's those that have nae one to visit them, you know. I like to do my bit for the old folks. And, of course, Maeve Donaldson likes me to do her hair, bless her heart. Her son's a policeman, you know. Very handsome, too. She gave a knowing look. So you've said about 1,000,000 times, Granny, and I've seen him at the day centre. He's not my type. How many more times do I need to say it? Isla ignored her and continued. Aye, he plays the fiddle and the guitar, you know. He's in a ceilidh band with other police folks, and she's a lovely old dear, is his mother, Maeve. My best friend after you and Beau. She's 78, you know. Bella giggled. Aye, and you're 85. Isla made another scoffing noise. Anyway, what's your news? She asked. The apartments are finished. Isla widened her eyes. Already? That's wonderful, Hen. What has Olivia said? She's banned from seeing them until the furniture arrives and the paintings are up. Isla beamed at her granddaughter. I'm so proud of you, and I can't wait to see them. She sighed and shook her head. I've told you I don't know how many times your talent's being wasted. Maybe now you'll listen to me and pursue the career you actually want. Bella stood and walked over to kiss her granny on the head. Ignoring her comments, she simply said, I'll take you to see them once they're finished. She sat on the arm of her granny's chair. Speaking of the castle, have you had any more issues with that brother of Olivia's? Bella regretted confiding in her granny. The note of disdain in her tone was evident. Not really. I think he's finally getting the message. About bloomin' time, if you ask me. He may be a posh knob, but he's no good for my Arabella. Bella had lost count of the number of times her granny had expressed her opinion on the matter. Aye, I know how you feel about it. Isla shook her head and pursed her lips. I really don't get what you saw in him. I know he's good-looking, but he's ugly on the inside. Bella scrunched her brow. I don't think you know him well enough to say that, Granny. It's the truth, Hen. I've heard stories about him and his antics, his drinking and his gambling, not to mention his womanising. I worry about you. What you need is to meet a handsome young man who's available and not a shit. Bella tried not to laugh. Granny? I hope you mind your language at the day centre. Och, I do not. I'm frae Glasgow, don't forget, and we tell it how it is, she said, allowing her softened accent to give way to its origins for a moment. And anyway, they've all been around the block a few times, so they've heard much worse. And stop changing the subject. Kermit MacBain is a rat bag, and you know he is. What kind of man has 2 women on the go? Bella opened her mouth to speak, but Isla interrupted. A rat bag, that's what. Bella stood. His name is Kerr. Aye, well, what else could it be short for? It's not short for anything, Granny. It's just Kerr. Mirren sent me home with some shortbread and some more of her wedding cake from the freezer, so we can have that after dinner. Mirren, the housekeeper at Drumblair, had married Doogie, Brodie's dad, and the groundsman for the castle. Their wedding had taken place at New Year, and the cake had been huge. Months on, and every so often, she would defrost a batch to share around. Shall I put the kettle on? Aye, I'd love a cup of tea. The stuff they use at the day centre tastes like floor scrapings. In fact, I'm not even sure it's ever seen a tea plant. Probably some random dried leaves out the gardens. She chuckled. Bella laughed to herself as she wandered into the kitchen to put the kettle on. Beau followed her, his tail wagging in the hope there may be treats for him too. You can't have fruitcake, wee man. It's poisonous to dogs. Your mum called earlier. She wants to borrow a dress of yours for the cruise. I told her you'd call her. OK, I wish I was going with them. You could have gone. They did invite you. Your dad would love you to be there to celebrate his 60th. I don't want to leave Olivia in the lurch, especially when the booking system for the apartments is about to go live. I'm in charge of overseeing that. Bella had been reticent about moving into her granny's 3-bedroom house on Innes Street in Inverness, but at the time it had been necessary when she'd had to move out of her flat after losing her job. She had, for a short time, moved back home into her brother's bedroom while he was at uni. Her own bedroom had been turned into a gym/office. But when Callum returned from uni, she had been faced with the prospect of sleeping on the sofa. Living with Granny Isla had always been intended as a temporary situation until she could afford her own place. But now she didn't really want to leave. Isla was such fun for an octogenarian. With her varying hair colours, her boho chic clothes, and her inane ability for malapropisms, there was never a lull in entertainment. I've made stovies for tea, by the way. It's ready when you are, Isla called again. Bella knew she had, thanks to the familiar, mouth-watering aroma of cooked meat and vegetables. I got some oat cakes from the wee deli by the day centre. I wasn't sure if you were off out, though. No, Granny, I'm looking forward to the stovies. I'll set the table, eh? She grabbed the mats and plates from the old dresser and laid the table. Come on, I'm serving up. Isla came through. I'm starving. We only had roast pork, veg, and sponge with custard for lunch. Bella began to plate up the stew and placed a portion in front of her granny. Only? It beats a salad sandwich I had. Aye, but they think gyratics eat like sparrows at that place. All fancy pants, but no substance. Bella smiled and shook her head. Anyway, do you fancy coming to visit the castle with me at the weekend? Olivia would love to see you. Count me in. Will that handsome chap of hers be there? Brodie, I would think so. Don't you go flirting with him, Gran, Bella said with a wink. I wouldn't dream of it. Can't stop him flirting with me, though, eh? Isla smiled with a mischievous glint in her eyes. Brodie had a definite soft spot for Granny. Do you think he'll ever propose properly to Olivia? Bella chewed a mouthful of melt-in-the-mouth beef, onions and soft potato before replying, Absolutely. He's just waiting for his divorce from that evil, violent woman to be finalised. Then I bet there will be an official, lavish proposal. Isla smiled dreamily. Don't you think he's got a look of that actor? She asked. The one named after that fancy rice stuff that's all the rage these days. Although I don't see what's wrong with plain old boiling the bag myself."
Bella scrunched her brow and shrugged.
"I have no clue who you mean."
Isla waved her fork in frustration.
"Oh, you do."
She placed her fork down and clicked her fingers.
"Not couscous. Oh, the other one."
There was a light bulb moment, and Isla's face lit up.
"Quinoa. Aye, that's it. Quinoa something or other. Reeves. Aye, that's him. Quinoa Reeves."
Bella almost choked on her food as she laughed.
"Quinoa Reeves? Aye, I suppose Brodie does look a little like him."
Isla scowled.
"Aye, although who names their child after a rice substitute? But then again, Gwyneth Paltrow named her daughter Apple, I suppose."
She rolled her eyes and shrugged. Bella was a little bewildered by her granny's knowledge of the American actress and her offspring. She briefly considered arguing and explaining the actor to whom she was referring was Keanu, but decided not to bother. Her version was cute and funny and would be added to the list of other Isla-isms uttered by the Douglas matriarch, which would go down in history.
"Right, it's a date then," Bella said. "Let's go and visit Saturday morning. The weather is supposed to be dry, and I can't wait for you to see everything in real life rather than photos on my phone."
They chatted about nothing much until they finished their meal.
"Right, I'll go call my mum, and then I'll sort the dishes."
Chapter 3. Saturday was a dry and bright day, if a little chilly for May, and as Bella drove Fifi, her vintage, some would say ancient, red Citroen, her heart skipped with excitement. She couldn't wait to show her granny the newly decorated apartments. As they travelled up the long, tree-lined driveway, Isla sang along with Lewis Capaldi's Pointless playing on the radio in her almost operatic voice.
"I didn't know you were a fan, Granny," Bella said with a smile. "In fact, I didn't even know you were aware of Lewis Capaldi." "I do like to keep up with the modern tunes, you know. I listen to Radio Highland when I'm baking or cleaning." "Po likes him too. He's from Glasgow, you know, and he's a handsome young man. Not quite as handsome as his father, though."
Bella was a little confused as to how Isla might know Lewis Capaldi's dad. She needn't have wondered, because Isla added,
"Aye, I remember him in that lovely film Local Hero. His father, I mean."
Bella remembered watching Local Hero with her granny when she was younger. It was one of Isla's favourite movies because it was filmed on location in Arisaig on the west coast of Scotland, a place she had visited as a young girl.
"Hang on, Granny. Lewis Capaldi's dad isn't an actor. In fact, I'm sure I saw an interview with him once where he said his dad was a fishmonger."
Isla pondered this for a moment.
"No, Peter Capaldi is definitely an actor. I should know. He's in my favourite film."
Although Bella could understand the mistake, it wasn't a particularly common name, she informed her granny,
"Peter Capaldi and Lewis Capaldi aren't actually related, I'm afraid."
She tried not to giggle at the mix-up.
"So, did he adopt him then? Oh, it's nice Lewis took his name." "No, Granny. I mean, they may share the name, but they don't know each other. Not really." "Well, he must have known him well enough to adopt the poor wee lad." "No, Granny. I mean, they aren't connected at all. Well, apart from the fact Peter Capaldi appeared in one of Lewis's music videos. Anyway, I can understand why you'd think they were. Oh, that made me a little bit sad. Bella felt guilty at bursting her granny's invented bubble. But within moments she pulled the car to a stop in front of the stunning, vast stone structure of Drumblair Castle. The sun glinted off the small panes of glass in the windows, and the cerulean blue sky gave a contrast. Arriving at the castle never ceased to excite Bella. In fact, she couldn't remember ever enjoying so-called work as much as she had when working on the apartments. She gave a sigh, but smiled. Never mind, Granny. We're here now. Come on. As Bella helped her Granny and Beau out of the old car, she glanced up at the large double oak doors and saw Kerr walking towards them, as handsome as ever, in dark jeans and a chunky pale green Aran jumper. His hair looked damp as if he had recently showered, and he was smiling and walking with purpose. Olivia had mentioned he'd been staying in his old bedroom for a few days, helping with sorting through some old belongings of his father's to clear out some space for storage. Things seemed good between them, and that made Bella happy. Beau gave a low, rumbled growl, and Isla scoffed. Ugh. Did you know Kermit was going to be here? He gives me the bee-gees. Bella tried not to smirk as she pictured the dazzling-toothed trio. I think you mean the heebie-jeebies? And yes, I had an inkling Kerr would be here, and please don't call him Kermit, especially not to his face. Isla shrugged like a sulking teenager. It suits him. And he's wearing green. Behave yourself, Bella insisted. And remember what I said. She hissed as Kerr arrived beside the car. He smiled at Bella, his eyes lingering a little long on her body.
Bella, you look lovely as ever, he said in a deep, husky voice. And Mrs. Douglas, how lovely to see you. He bent in a condescending manner to address the elderly woman. I understand you've come for a tour of the new apartments, he said in a loud, exaggerated voice. Isla's face crumpled in disgust. I'm no deaf, you gleekit bampot. She shook her head rapidly, her nose turned up as if he was a bad smell she couldn't get rid of. Kerr raised his eyebrows, but forced a smile and ignored her insult. You must be so proud of what Bella has achieved. I'm sure you'll love the decor, he said without lowering the volume of his voice. And you'd better behave yourself, little dog, he said to the canine, who was still giving off come closer and I'll bite your shins vibes. Aye, well, I'm sure you, Isla said with a stony expression. Granny, be nice, Bella whispered through a strained smile. Isla didn't let up. I'm sure Gonzo and Fozzie are waiting for you, she chantered almost inaudibly. Granny, Bella hissed, this time through clenched teeth. Kerr stepped a little closer. I'm sorry, Mrs. Douglas, he said with a hand to his ear to exaggerate his point. I didn't quite hear you. His voice was still annoyingly loud as he tilted his head so his ear was closer to her. Bella laughed nervously. Oh, she said, her ears have gone fuzzy. I think I was playing Lewis Capaldi a bit too loud in the car. Come on, Granny. Bella took Isla's arm and gave an apologetic smile to Kerr. Oh, yes, I like Lewis Capaldi too, Kerr said. We'd better get on. See you later, Bella told him with yet another apologetic smile. Come on, Granny.
She made no effort to hide her irritation at the badly behaved matriarch. As they entered the first apartment, they were greeted by the pungent, yet not entirely unpleasant smell of newly applied paint and the rubber-like odour of freshly laid carpets. The furniture was all in place, and the classic shapes and styles of the old renovated pieces Bella had selected from the attics complemented the colour scheme so well. In addition to the strange combination of smells, a vase of fragrant roses from the walled garden adorned the solid oak countertop in the kitchen, the first room on the right. Bella released Beau from his lead, and he ran off to sniff and investigate. They walked on through to the living room, and Bella couldn't help the flip of excitement in her stomach on seeing the beige fabric couches scattered with Drumblair tartan cushions, matching the sumptuous thick pile of the rug that covered the oak floor. The addition of new lighting created a bright and welcoming atmosphere. Artwork from an Isle of Skye-based artist called Reed McKinnon graced the walls and added a splash of contrasting colour to the room. Bella had ordered the paintings from a little gallery in a village called Glentoran after seeing them in a TikTok video the artist had made. Some of the stone had been left exposed, harking to the heritage and origins of the stables. An old recess now served as a bookshelf, illuminated by downlights and embellished with taste. Isla gasped as she glanced around the rooms. "Arabella, dearie, you've done a bonny job, hen. I wouldn't mind living here myself. It all looks so expensive and very classy." Bella's eyes welled as she hugged her granny. "Thanks, Granny. I'm so glad you like it. The others are similar, but they all have their own individual touches, giving them their own personality." "Well, I think you could give that flamboyant interior design chappie Lululemon off the telly a run for his money, don't you think so, Beau?" Isla chuckled, and the dog appeared from the direction of the bedrooms, wagging his tail, clearly in agreement. "All you need is a twiddly moustache and gaudy suit." Bella presumed she was referring to Lawrence Llewellyn Bowen, as they had watched his makeover shows together many times. "Oh, thank you, but I think I'll give the moustache a miss, if you don't mind." "Hello, hello, anyone home?" Olivia's voice called from the front door, and as she walked into the living room, she enveloped them each in turn in a warm hug. "Isla, wow, you're looking very glam. I'm loving the purple hair." She bent to give Beau a scratch behind the ears. "Oh, thank you. You're no looking so bad yourself, hen. I think you're wearing castle life very well." Bella noted the way her granny feigned poshness in front of the new Lady MacBain and tried not to giggle. "Thank you. I must admit I'm loving it now I'm getting the hang of everything. But I wouldn't be where I was now if it wasn't for your granddaughter. Bella has been a huge help to me." Isla smiled up at Bella. "Aye, she's a good lass. We need to find her a man as good as yours now. I was trying to tell her earlier about a nice, handsome policeman I know, but she won't hear of it." Bella felt her cheeks heating. "I'm capable of finding my own man, Granny." Olivia gave a wink. "As far as I'm aware, you already have, haven't you? Although you haven't mentioned him in a while." Bella's stomach lurched at the mention of her secret relationship, and she felt her face flush. "Isla, you and..." Olivia teased. Isla opened her mouth to speak, but Bella quickly interrupted. "Oh no, actually that's all over now. But enough about my love life. Yours is far nicer to talk about." It's all over between you and the mystery man? Oh, I'm sorry, Olivia said with a pout. Aye, it has been for a while, but I'm fine. Anyway, is Brodie around? I wanted to ask him how his book is going. Childhood friends Brodie and Olivia had connected again after a long time apart. He had been Olivia's first love, but she'd had no idea back then that he'd held the same feelings for her, mainly on account of the fact he had been rather mean to her before he moved away with his mother. An abusive relationship had left Brodie somewhat bruised, both physically and emotionally, but thanks to Olivia, he had found love again. Since their reconnection, Brodie had embarked upon a passion project and had been gathering information about Drumblair Castle, a place he had been familiar with and had loved since childhood, in order to write a book. The plan was to sell it in the castle gift shop when the place finally opened to the public in July. While she was working on the apartments, Bella had been reading pages of the book as it was being written and had learned all sorts of fascinating stuff about the castle and its legendary connections to Bonnie Prince Charlie. "He's finished editing it," Olivia informed her excitedly. "It's gone off to the printers." Bella was truly delighted. "That's incredible. What an achievement. Let him know I want a signed copy." Olivia beamed with pride. "I think that can be arranged, seeing as you were his first reader. He should try to get it published instead of just printing it for the castle shop." Olivia nodded and held her hands out at her sides. "Yep, I've told him the same, but he insists no publisher would take it. Ooh, speaking of writers, I have news." Bella could see the excitement glinting in Olivia's eyes, and her interest was piqued. "Spill it, MacBain." "Okay, so we had an email yesterday from the agent of a writer who is looking for somewhere to stay while he completes his next crime thriller. A sort of writing retreat, if you will. I wasn't expecting news to get around so fast, but she knows someone who lives in the area who told her about the castle and the renovations, and she has asked if he can come and stay for a while. I'm not entirely sure how long, but isn't it exciting? Your first paying customer? That is exciting. And I love a crime thriller." Olivia grinned. "I know. I immediately thought of you when she told me what he was working on." "Is it anyone I've heard of? Maybe I've read something of his." Olivia pursed her lips for a moment. "Sadly, no. Well, not that I've seen when I've Googled his name." Bella's stomach set about fluttering with butterflies. "Which is?" "Aidan O'Dowd," Olivia said with a smile. "I've searched and searched, but can't find anything about him." Bella racked her brains but couldn't place the name. She'd read hundreds of thrillers and crime fiction stories and felt sure she would know if she had read anything by him. "No, that doesn't ring a bell with me. Maybe he's quite new?" Olivia shrugged. "I don't think so. She said he's been writing a while. It's apparently set in a castle, so she thought it would be the perfect place for inspiration." Bella grinned. "Oh, well, another author for me to discover. When is he coming to stay?" "He's moving in sometime around 23rd of July, I believe." Bella widened her eyes. "But that's opening day for the castle. Talk about adding to the stress pile." Olivia shook her head. "It'll be fine. We'll have plenty of time to get everything put back to normal after the event. It'll be easier now the fashion show will be my designs and I'm using local models." Bella noted a hint of sadness in Olivia's eyes. She'd known how much the original fashion show idea had meant to her. "It'll be amazing, you know," she said, hoping to reassure her. Bella was already trying to picture the author from his name. Aidan felt quite young, perhaps like the man who played Poldark in the remake, although the photos of crime writers she'd actually seen didn't fit that mould. Olivia interrupted her thoughts. Speaking of the corporate event, I'm afraid I'm going to need you to take on an extra task. Brodie wants to whisk me away for a few days, and I tried to decline, but I can't say no to him, she said dreamily. Then, when I get back, I'll need to knuckle down with my designs for the fashion show part of the event. Bella nodded. Sure, boss. Let me know what you need me to do. Olivia beamed. Thanks, honey. I'll need you to handle the e-invites for local businesses and people, local press, national press, magazines, etc. I really appreciate your help. I know you've had a lot on with the apartments, and you could probably do with a rest, but they need to go out as soon as possible, really. Bella shook her head. No, I'm all good, and I'm happy to help. Fantastic. Well, I'll get the list over to you on Monday. In the meantime, I'll leave you to show your lovely, glamorous granny around the apartments. Enjoy, Isla, and pop up to the kitchen for a cuppa when you're done. I'm sure Mirren will want to see you and wee Beau. She kissed Isla on both cheeks and left them to look around. Once Olivia had left the room, Isla nudged Bella. See, that's what you need. Someone who won't take no for an answer when he wants to sweep you off your feet. Not someone who wants you to be at his beck and call behind his other woman's back when it suits him. Bella sighed as sadness washed over her. I know, Granny. I'd love a relationship like theirs. As if feeling bad for ribbing her, Isla linked arms with her and tiptoed up to kiss her cheek. Aye, well, you never know, hen. This fancy crime author chappie might be the one. Bella snorted. Not likely. Most crime and thriller writers are older married men or middle-aged women. And I'm not into either. Isla raised her eyebrows. You know that's called stereotyping, don't you? I didn't think that was the kind of thing you young folks did. And anyway, you never know. There's always an exception to the rule. Bella smiled.